E uia kua nauia oi, aihea kawaya kane. Understanding water rights in Maui and throughout Hawaii has always been intricate and complicated. From traditional Hawaiian practices to contemporary legal structures, we will explore the historical, current, and future aspects of water access, conservation, and management. Join us as we explore the question, do you know your vai?
Aloha mai kākou. And mahalo for joining us for this opportunity to know your way and better understand where the water went. I'm Kapua Sproat, and I'm honored to moderate this esteemed panel. Ola ika vai, water is life. And as people who live on tiny islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, here in Hawaii, we are keenly aware that fresh water is a vital source of life across our pai'aina. Since time immemorial, Kanaka have revered fresh water as a kinolau of Akua Kane, or a physical embodiment of one of our major gods. Vai is a life force that sustains natural resources and spiritual mana. It feeds our indigenous culture, and it defines who we are as a people. The story of vai in Hawaii is, unfortunately, similar to others across island Earth. Freshwater was revered in Kanaka society and carefully managed as a public trust for present and future generations. It was a foundation for natural systems, indigenous law and communities, and entire islands. It was also coveted by foreigners who moved to our shores, especially to subsidize the rise of plantation agriculture and then urban and resort development. The commodification of fresh water rewrote the social contract and transformed life in Hawaii as we know it. In many ways, centuries of plantation water mismanagement, combined with the climate crisis and unprecedented drought, have set the stage for the deadly wildfires we continue to experience. We have with us today 4 individuals who know why and who have made water their life's work. Our panelists are unwavering advocates for Native Hawaiian rights and Hawaii's public trust doctrine, who have manifested, or actually I should say, who have manifested lo'i restoration and have actualized Kanaka culture and lifeways. So now for their official intros, but please hold your raucous applause until all 4 are pau. Kekai Keahi needs no introduction. He is a Maui Komohana community leader in Kia'i, a 9th generation Lahaina resident. Uncle Kekai is an educator and a thought leader, advocating for Maui Komohana and its vai since before that was a thing of panels and infamous Instagram videos. In the wake of the wildfires that ravaged Maui, he is who this community looks to for guidance on water and really on any issue concerning Lahaina, Maui Komohana, and Maui Nui. Hōkūao Pellegrino is first and foremost a Kanaka and kalo farmer on his Ohana's Aina Kuleana of Noho'ana in Waikapu. He has been the face and the voice of Hui o na Vai Eha and has been instrumental in evolving this humble hui of community advocates into a force to be reckoned with on all things vai. Whether they're restoring streams, navigating the intricacies of water use permitting, or rebuilding a wai and restoring lo'ikalo. Junior Kekiwi is a kalo farmer and the president of Namoku Aupuni o Ko'olau Hui. Namoku has worked tirelessly over more than 2 decades to restore their vai and their lo'ikalo. And as you folks saw earlier, Junior stepped up like the warrior that he is and joined our panel with no notice when, unfortunately, Uncle Ed was unable to join us this morning. While many know Neil Hannes in his current role as a water commissioner, he formerly managed more than 350,000 acres of agricultural and conservation land for Kamehameha schools, where he introduced an Aina-based sustainable systems approach to land management. Neil now heads up Ho'okele Strategies, LLC, and serves on the boards of the Polynesian Voyaging Society, Hawaii Land Trust, Aloha Kuamo'aina, Hawaii Investment Ready, and Avaya Ulu. Please join me in welcoming this phenomenal panel. So I'd like to start with some history and context. So for our panelists, what was the vai like in your community? How was it impacted by plantations and their successors? In other words, where did your water go? So Uncle Kai, please start us off with Maui Komohana before we move on to Hōkūao, and then Junior and Neil will close us out on this question.
Aloha. Before I start, I gotta say, Poile Kiokono, that's my nephew. Love that boy. Love that boy. We read the history books and we hear of Lahaina being the Venice of the Pacific with all its waterways and water everywhere, fish ponds and all. Yet we grew up in a time where we didn't notice that. In fact, we just see barren, dry land. We grew up in a time where there was no streams flowing on the west side. We were the last family in Lahaina to be raising taro. And we were fed through a 2-inch pipe that had to feed 3 acres of taro, which, that's not going to happen. So I think I was about maybe 7th grade or so, we stopped farming up there in Kanaha. And a lot of these waters were controlled and taken away by Pioneer Mill, West Maui Land Company. And the dewatering of Lahaina has greatly affected a lot of the Kuleanas who's living in these valleys, who depended on these lands to sustain themselves, to earn a living through raising of taro and whatnot. We tend to look at the water as being the main issue, which it is, but a lot of families had to leave these valleys to go find work in the plantations. And while that was happening, the plantations were gobbling up all of their lands. To where in Kahoma, we see only maybe a handful of families that was able to hold on to the Kuleana lands, and the rest of the valley is all owned by Pioneer, which now is West Maui Land Company. So the water was diverted for sugarcane, taken away from the people in the valleys, and we were left with nothing. So we end up moving out, and taro in Lahaina ended.
Aloha mai kākou. From the ahupua'a of Waikapu, which is the southernmost ahupua'a of the once largest contiguous kala growing region known as Nawai'eha. It's the driest ahupua'a, and even more drier in this current state. It is also an ahupua'a that has the longest reach in terms of its watershed, a little over 9 miles long, flowing from between Hanaula and Kapilau all the way to what everybody is taking all their selfies at Kealia with the Barbie colored water. And that's another story. But, Nawai'eha was really the birthplace of the sugar industry. And it was really built on the backs of our kupuna, with the early introduction of Wailuku Sugar Company, Waikapu Sugar Company, Lures Mill, Waihe'e Mill, Bell and Adams, Bailey and Sons. I mean, just you name it. HCNS. There was a plethora of sugarcane companies in the Nawai'eha area, and Uncle Kai talked about the dewatering of the streams, and for Nawai'eha, it was the streams were flowing; they were just flowing in the wrong direction, and that happened. A lot of those systems, those diversion systems that redirected and diverted the waters away from the watershed and from Lo'ikalo systems really began piggybacking off the old historic systems like the Kama'auai and the Kalani'auai. And as these further developed, really Nawai'eha, which once, they estimate anywhere between 5,000 and 8,000 acres of kalo cultivation by 1900, 60 so years after the establishment of the sugar industry in Hawaiiha, were less than 200 acres. And today, there's less than 20 acres from Waikapu all the way to Waihe'e. And so for us, when I think of what's happening in Lahaina, but also the work that we're doing in Hawaiiha, our landscape drastically changed a lot earlier than in Lahaina, and a lot of just because of the topography, a lot of the devastation and destruction of lo'i kalo went really far up into the interior parts of our valleys from Waikapu to Waihe'e. Same story in Lahaina, in the moku of Lahaina, except that many of these interior valleys from Ukumehame all the way to Honokohau, whether they're being cultivated or not, these lo'i kalo systems, the remnants of those systems still exist. That's a big difference. So for our restoration efforts in Hawaiiha, it's a matter of really rebuilding from scratch in some particular areas, and using historical documents and maps and trying to bring our lineal descendants and back to their aina kuleana to begin that restoration efforts. Mahalo.
All right. This thing on. Aloha Maui. So my name is Jerome Kekiwi Jr. I filling in for Uncle Eddie. He actually supposed to be here sitting down and educating you folks. But, I just like everybody take a moment for just uplift all our kupunas that need our spiritual, guidance. So, okay, so I come from a little small village called Keanai, Maui. Actually, Wailua Nui. So Keanai and Wailua Nui is two different, separate aupua'as, but same, families. Everybody is connected. And I guess back in, our kingdom days, pretty sure was his name Spreckles. He went yes, he went finagle Kalakaua in building the 75-mile ditch system that can hold up to 400 million gallons of water a day. Okay, so from the 1800s to about the 70s, we seen depletion, but once came like the 1990s, that's when we really seen the depletion and the dewatering of East Maui. So we're talking about 200 rivers and streams, fully diverted 100%, all going out to Central Maui and upcountry Maui. So in 1996, our kupunas, Ere, and Te Alva, my mom, all the kupunas from Keanai and Wailua Nui, they went hui up and they went form this organization called Namoku Aupuni o Ko'olau Hui. And when they went form this organization, we never have water. We never have enough water for farm. So, they went form in 1996, and that's when they went pursue our water rights. In 2001, we petitioned 27 rivers and streams throughout the Ko'olau. And from 2001 all the way to 2016 was on battle in the court systems with Native Hawaiian legal corporations backing our community up for fight for our water rights. And in 2016, we finally got one decision in our favor by Judge Nishimura to release 10 taro feeding rivers and streams 100%. So with that, you know, I give all the glory to our kupunas, because if they wasn't strong enough to organize and fight this fight, you know, we all know what would have happened. We would have had nothing. Like how Eddie says, they was already taking them all. And I don't even mention the corporations' names or whatever, you know what I mean? But I thank them. I thank them with all my heart for, you know, for organizing and seeing that vision and knowing that right that they get, you know, for the connectivity from Mauka to Makai. So, you know, from 2016 to this day, we staying on restoration efforts. We get community work days. We hui up. We go up the mountain. We go clean our spring. Hui up. We clean, like just the other week, we help Auntie clean her Hawaii. You know, had all how bush and all kind of opala inside. So we got to, they never have water, you know. And by the end of the day, they had water. So it's a slow process, but, you know, like our kupunas went instilled into us that, just put your head down and keep going, you know. But yeah, that's kind of what I get for sure right now. Mahalo.
Hello, Mike Hōkūao. To all of you on Maui who have extended such grace and hospitality, not only at this conference, but when the Water Commission met here a month ago, and then even coming to Honolulu to meet with the Water Commission, where we've had from Maui 21 hours of hearings in the last 2 months. We really appreciate your grace, your passion, your resilience, and your knowledge, and your ike that you share with us. So I'm a beneficiary of that. And what an honor to be on this panel. Although one of these things is not like the other things. One of these kanakas is not like the great farmers here, but I think it's important to have people in representing land ownership, representing business operations, representing regulatory bodies, sitting side by side with the farmers who use the water that we're making decisions about. Whether it's an investment decision or a CIP, capital improvement decision on infrastructure, or a policy decision. So forth. But I want to go back to your question because in a large part of my experience is through my work at Kamehameha schools. When you ask about where's my water, when I give my introduction, you say, Hanai ulu awi ka malu o pu o hulu, I ka aina nana kamaha o maili. And you saw maili when Kalehua Krug in that video, that beautiful music video, Kalehua Krug, I lived right on the other side of that pu'u that Kalehua was in front of. But in fact, when I'm introspective and I come to grips with myself, you know, and I'm real with myself, that's a lie. Because I was plucked from that area when I was 12 years old in a good way because I was admitted to Kamehameha schools. And Kamehameha schools did a good job of plucking bright young talent from community to bring to Kapalama. In those days, that was the only campus we had, you know, in order to kind of assimilate and educate and do all these things. And so it really struck me that Kamehameha really kind of had an extractive strategy because they didn't really talk to us in those days. We do now. And you want to know the difference between Kamehameha schools then and now? Look at me versus Paele. Paele knows enough to cheer for Lahaina Luna because that's his home, not bleed Kamehameha blue so much that you don't even know where you came from. So good on you. That's how much we've advanced. But in our days, we were pluckers. We were extractors. And the attitude didn't just stick with students, you know, who you wanted to bring out of Hana and show the big city and send off to some career as a lawyer or a doctor or something, never to go back to Hana. You know, we did the same thing with water. We did the same thing with our land resources. So over time, as I came to be in the management position, I'm looking across the aisle, the table, the courtroom, the hearing room at Kapua, because trying to defend Waihole Ditch and why to benefit our lands, Kamehameha's Pauahi's lands in Waiava, you know, we're sucking water out of all the windward streams to bring to Waiava in the early days for plantation purposes, but in the 80s, really to be used as golf course irrigation and construction dust control for a big development by Gentry that was going to be homes and golf courses and commercial. We were again extracting, and that was the mentality and strategy of the institution, leaving our kalo farmers high and dry, because it was more important to make money so we could pluck more keiki from homes. And you know, you don't wish for a fire. You don't wish for a calamity. We didn't wish for the implosion of our leadership at Kamehameha in the 1990s. But it happened, and in those moments, you find the courage and the wisdom of your community who steps forth to give you a vision of building back better. And not the BS building back better that we've been hearing from certain circles, but really building back on a cultural foundation. And I always mahalo and credit Kapua, the whole family, the Sproat family. Man, in the 1990s, we had over 150 community-based meetings. They were at most of them. And they were saying, we don't have stupid written on across our forehead. You know, don't come here, take all our stuff, and then come back and give us an education for 1 out of every 20 of our kids. That's a lousy deal, and you need to rethink that. So I was really pleased and privileged to be educated in that way and to be allowed to be a part and a partner for how do we think that. And we'll talk more about that in a bit, but mahalo.
Mahalo for that, everyone, and especially to Neil. It's so much easier when we can get along and just work things out. Don't have to.
All right, well, let's tell the story. We had all these high-priced attorneys at Waihole. The best money could buy from Bishop Street, from Wall Street, from whatever. This girl kicked their ass all across the courtroom.
Because the little brown girl from Kalihivai remembered where she came from. But anyhow, thank you so much to our panelists for helping us to really learn more about their aina and how these places, and Maui in particular, were really places of such abundance of vai and vai. From Maui Hikina to Navai Eha to Maui Komohana and beyond, even to Waihole and to areas on Oahu. I think as we began to hear with Junior this morning, you know, vai stories, well, actually from everyone, these are also tales of struggle. And each person on this panel have really been kia'i leaders in the battle to take back our streams and our freshwater resources. So I'd like to ask the next round of questions, starting with Uncle Kai of, you know, what's your community's vai story of restoration and reclamation?
You know, at first, I'd like to start off with Neil was sitting on the opposite side table when he was at Kamehameha Schools, and the first guys we did battle with 18 years ago, I think it was, roughly, was at Kamehameha Schools to get the water back in Kahoma Stream. That's where it all started. Kind of funny we kind of sit on the same side, no? and I'm happy that Ask Kiko is with us. What was the question? I have it too much fun.
So what's your community's vai story of restoration, of reclamation? I mean, you have been involved in so much, from Kahoma to, every place.
You know, it started off as a real selfish want. You know, we was going back into Kahoma. We wanted to plant taro. We would never have water. 130 years, never have water in that stream. And so for a selfish reason, we started going to battle with Kamehameha Schools to try and get some water back to, you know, raise taro. And, you know, over the years, we started to get water back. And we started, you know, opening up some taro patches. But what we noticed was stream life started to return. After 130 years, stream life started to return that we had nothing to do with. And then our mindset started to change where it was about selfish reason of raising taro to all of a sudden we see how the environment was changing. And it never take too long. We just need to get out of the way and nature gonna do its thing and come back. So much so that we had all the old pools return to the stream. We went with Skippy to East Maui and pick up some opai and hiva and put them back into the stream. And what was kind of interesting was that we come from Ala Village where the muliwai of Kahoma and Kanaha exit. And, you know, my father and myself, we dived the area. Our whole family, we from the area, we fish and stuff. And there was fish that was coming back to the area that we're not used to seeing there. And those fish tend to like to congregate around fresh water, where the muliwai is at. And so one day my father come home and he noticed a big school of inui. We never did have inui in that place, ever. And he was like, something wrong. How come these fish stay over here? You gotta understand, like all his life he never see these fish. And we, you know, I talk about the sliding scale from where my grandfather saw the environment in his time and what my dad saw is two different things. And what I see in my time is different, but we each see our environment during our time as normal, even though during my time is a lot less than what my grandfather had. And so this fish wasn't here. Now it's here. My father thought the world was ending. Something gotta be wrong. And then I would ask him, and he says, you know, what you heard about? And he said, oh, you know, he had to think back about what his father told him. He said, oh yeah, you know, way back before, they should talk about catching inui in this area. So I was like, oh, so it was here before. It's just because of what we did with the streams. Well, not we, the other guys. That we changed the environment. And now what we see is the scale flip in the opposite direction. So now what I see as normal, hopefully in my boy's time, and what he sees as normal is more than what I saw. And we've seen that now in the stream for sure, and in the area of Mala. It's not enough to rest on the interim in-stream flow standards that we fought for so many years. It's not enough to rest on the designation for ground and surface water that we fought for so many years. That's not enough to replenish our aquifers. It's not enough to sustain a population on the west side. So we got to rebuild our aquifers, and we got to look at different ways in how we're gonna do that. And you know, we always hear about Moku'ula and Mokuhinia, about the fish ponds and Alamihi and the Venice. And one thing we kind of forget to look at, and it's just something I read, and it was talking about malu ulolele, the malu. It's the shade. There's a canopy of these trees that used to exist there that protect the ground and the moisture in the ground from that merciless sun we have on the west side. And because of that, our springs and our aquifers were plentiful. We don't have that today. And so part of the movement is also reforesting the west side of Maui to get that canopy back to provide the malu in order to protect our ground. So, I mean, there's so much things that we're looking at. We're even looking at utilizing reclaimed R1 water to use for irrigation purposes, dual meter systems where 1 meter going into your home is for irrigation purposes only, one for drinking. We on the west side, I think we produce about almost 7 million gallons of reclaimed water, R1 water. Now, it's clean, don't worry. We're not going to get doo-doo coming out of the pipe. But, you know, the Launiopoko aquifer, in which Lahaina sits in, the sustainable yield that we can draw out of the ground is 7 million gallons a day. Based on what we're taking out of the ground right now, we're already at 95% capacity. We're in bad shape. So this reclaimed water that we can use to water our parks or wash our cars or use for farming, is that much water that we can leave in the ground every single day to rebuild our aquifers. So we're looking far beyond. We're trying to be innovative and be that template that, you know, most people can look at and say, no, this is the stuff that we got to do in order to ensure that our keiki is going to have water in the future. And so that's the things we're fighting for right now. And I'm not saying it's hard to use the fire as a good reason why we should do something. We should have been doing it before the fire happened. But because it happened, there's a kind of a great reset where we can really start to think about putting in the infrastructure, they're going to do just that. The next thing, and I'll end it after this, 77% of the water resources on the west side is controlled by private purveyors. The county only controls 23%. We got to do something about taking the water out of the hands of these private purveyors and putting them back into the public hands. If water is a public trust and it belongs to the people, just because I apply for a permit doesn't mean that you should be controlling 77% of our water on the west side. When we go into water shortage and we gotta pull back on our consumption of water, we gotta let our parks go dry, our lawns go dry, everybody get dirty car, yeah, because you're gonna get fined. And then you just look 1 mile north and you see the golf courses green, the swimming pools full, the mansions on the hill with the swimming pools full. And so that's just a salt in the wound. And we got to live with that every single day. So we got to change that. We got to change that. We cannot allow that. Their systems, those private systems, not entitled into the county system. So when we fall short of water, especially during the summer months, during drought times, we cannot even tap into their water and provide us when we don't have any water. They keep it all for themselves, 100%. We have no control over what they have. And that, again, I told Neil backstage, that's going to be one of our next fights, that we're going to be taking back this water.
I think I've got to go back to that, that famous description of Nawaiʻeha, contiguous kalo growing region, and what that really means in today's context, because contiguous was not just when you looked at Nawaiʻeha, Mauka to Makai, and you saw this vast, lo'i kalo, system and complex and agroforestry, but it was the relationships that were built in this system between Kanaka and Kanaka. Today, and for the last 37 years now, it's fragmented. The systems that, these plantation systems that were built were not only dividing up the water and diverting it, but it was also fragmenting the community and pushing the generational families out. I said this in one of the panel questions yesterday, is that I'm a little bit envious of Lahaina, because even though they went through a very similar history when it comes to water, what Lahaina has, what Nawaiʻeha doesn't have, is the generational families that are still there. Maybe they're not living on their same aina kuleana, but they're still there in the moku. When I met Kapua 20 years ago, almost to the day, all I was trying to do is to restore our aina, our kuleana aina. And I did not want to get involved with what we're doing now. Honestly, I just wanted to grow kalo and just stay in my own lane. But she said something, then she's heard this a million times from me already, but I will say it over and over again, is that she said that, restoring the water, the Hawaii, the IIFS, all that, the designation, all that jazz, that's going to be easy. It's rebuilding the trust and the relationships in the community again. And I can tell you that has been the greatest challenge, because, one, we don't have the generational families that once existed, and those who are there, they're sporadic, they're all over. Two is that many of these systems, these Hawaii systems, are they're connected, or these kuleana farmers are reliant on the plantation system to provide that water to them. And number two, some of those systems are kind of hybrid. You have, like the Kalua Street Hawaii. I don't know how many of you know that there's a historic Hawaii that is right next to Ichiban Restaurant in Wailuku on Kalua Drive that's still flowing today. But part of that system that originally came from the Kama Hawaii in Wailuku, now comes from the Waihe'e ditch in Waihe'e. So you have folks in Waikapu that are farming with water from Waihe'e. You have farmers in Wailuku farming from, getting water from Wai'ehu. And so when you're trying to rebuild and restore these systems, one of the biggest challenges that we have is that we're taking water from, even ourselves as kalo farmers, we're taking water from another watershed, another ahupua'a, from another stream that we didn't originally get from. And so that makes it very complicated to build those relationships again. As the IIFS was set, and the Supreme Court and the designation, those were all an integral part of this movement, of this restoring balance. But now it's not like Field of Dreams. When you build it, they'll come. It's a matter of re-educating, rebuilding the trust, getting our generational families back to what's left, if they even have their kuleana land. And same with Lahaina. Our water, a lot of our water in Navai'iha, when you turn on that tap, a good portion of that water is coming from the Wailuku Water Company system that they control, and they're selling back to us and right to the county. And when we're in the worst drought that we're in right now, in our backyard, we have golf courses too that are nice and green, while our lo'ikalo and our water is cooking. So it's really, even though these systems are in place to ensure that our public trust and our water resources are being protected, it is the community that ensures accountability. And these numbers mean nothing without the people that enforce it. The Water Commission plays a critical role in that, but it's the community that makes sure that these 2.9 MGD IFS, how many of you can go to a stream and know whether that's 2.9 million gallons flowing in that river? None of us can. Even those of us who are adjacent to it, we farm, we utilize that water, we don't know. And so ensuring that these entities like the Water Commission that are in place, and the staff to install these real-time gauges, to be able to look on our phone now with all the fancy technologies and to show like, oh yeah, they're following the in-stream flow standard or they're not. Because the minute we turn our back, walk away, forget, or think everything is cherry, that's when they come and swoop right in and do exactly what they did all over again. These IFS, these designations don't mean anything unless the community is enforcing it. And that's the future of what we're trying to do in Navai'iha. And it sounds, it's very much what Lahaina and East Maui is doing, is for the community to take control of these systems. And when we're talking about a public trust, it really should be in the public's hands, and the community should be engaged in managing these systems.
Yeah, so I just bounce off of what Hōkūao was just saying. I believe when it was this past year, the community went vote for one water authority board for the county of Maui, and the thing went through. So, I think that's one good step in getting the, like how you said, the trust back. My vice president from Namoku, he's got selected to be on the board, the water authority board. And the people went vote for him, hopefully there's a good movement in that, hopefully the county can come together, because I believe all of the water companies is all private water companies, yeah. So maybe it could be, I think it would be a better solution if if this water authority board would be able to form and help our communities make better decisions on the take of water, So me, I want full-time taro farmer. I know the importance of having the water in the Hawaii, taking just enough what you need and letting the rest go because we get other taro farmers below us, yeah, and everybody need that equal amount of flow and the cold water for feed their lo'i. So I take that to heart, you know. And I understand the IIFS, you know, that's the in-stream flow standards and stuff, but deep inside us, like if you're on Hawaiian, if you're on Kanaka, that's your kuleana, you know. That's your kuleana for help malama the awai, so the water can reach from Mauka to Makai. Can, like how these brothers are saying, they seen the oopu come back, they seen the fish come back. That's what's going to happen when you let nature take its course, you know. The natural beauty of our islands, of our home, and the resources going to come back for feed us, you know, so we can nourish this aina forever. But you know, for us, East Maui, same thing. When we got dewatered, plenty of our ohanas had to leave. You know, they had to go find other job opportunities, and you know, not everybody could stay home and farm. But I remember at one point, you know, just within the Kiana and Wailua Nui community, we had maybe at the time 50 families. Each family was pulling 1,000 to 2,000 pounds of taro a week for 52 weeks. Some families was pulling more, you know, like I remember Uncle Sammy, he used to pull like 20, 30 bags, 100-pound bags a week for 52 weeks. And, you know, we don't see that anymore. I mean, the hope is to get back to that, but like go and get a lot of education and go and get a lot of hands-on activities for the kekis, for have that opportunity for us pass down that that technique or that living, you know, because like how Hawaiian said, what we went live through, these kikis, you know, they're not gonna be able to see tutu man or tutu lere or you know, but we here right now, so hopefully we get this opportunity for restore our lifestyle, you know, how we really supposed to be living. Thank you.
I think we got to give ourselves credit that it's happening, and it's happening. That the change we've seen in those 20 years since you first met Kapua Hōkūao, there's been enormous progress. So, you know, these things happen for a reason, and as you rebuild, one of the things, disaster not only exposes your practices, it exposes your values. And so the first thing we had to do at Kamehameha when we melted down was to reconsider our values. And that value of extraction, that value of really doing to or doing for community rather than really uplifting community was exposed. And so we had to rethink about that. And the expression of values for us in the Land Assets Division was to generate an optimal balance of, it couldn't just be about the money. You know, how much money you made from these lands. It's the optimal balance of educational, economic, environmental, cultural, and community benefits. I was told that's your job, is to balance all of that. And so we then said, how do you do that? You know, first thing we need to do, we need knowledge. We need to know what we had in it. And that knowledge was not just in terms of empirical information about how much acreage or how much dollar value or how much gallonage and so forth, but really what, from a Vaivai standpoint, how did our kupuna look at this? And what was the richness that they saw in this and was really to have it generate from this that was able to create abundance that created the society, the successful, vibrant society we had. You know, and I looked at it this way. I said, you know, our flawed policy was to think that we needed to cultivate golden geese. And you have this golden goose of a resort or a planned subdivision or commercial center that you plop in these lands and you feed it everything. You feed that plantation all the water. You know, you feed and so that's you can produce money and so forth. And you deplete everything else. So we had to rethink about how we're going to achieve different valuations. And because that created zero account on culture, zero for the environment, zero for the community, you know, and it just lifted up one thing. And so as we got knowledge, we then could start with Kamehameha. You know, you gotta have a plan. You can't do anything with a plan. But that was a useful process, and we attracted talent. And from Maui lineage, Ulalia Woodside was one of the first hires that I had, and she's just brilliant. Now she's leading TNC. Jason Jeremiah is in the audience. You know, he's been enormously influential at Kamehameha. Kaio Duarte. So we created a strategic agricultural plan, a natural resource plan, cultural resource plan, an educational plan for our Aina, as well as a water resource plan. And then you got to actually put your money where your mouth is. And so we then said, okay, how do we implement that? And that's why we did Kahoma. Because you get the knowledge, okay, what's happening? We know we want to generate a broader spectrum of values. This stream has decrepit infrastructure that wouldn't even allow us to control the sluice gate. So the automatic default was to take the water of Kahoma and boom, put it up in the upper uplands of upper Kahoma, and not stay in that stream. So it took an investment to say, if we put our money where our mouth is, we got to fix that. We got to be able to control that sluice gate so that they only get what's legitimate needed for ag, the rest stays in the stream. And that was the investment made to do that. An area like Punaluu on the island of Oahu, we used to, I think, divert 6 million a day to deliver 1 million because the system was so inefficient. The dam across the river took all the low flow into the grate, the big grate that then went to the field in open ditch. So we did the whole dam. We destroyed that dam. We created a diversion system that had a fine grate mesh to it. It had stream channels. The low flow was on the channel banks, which allowed the Oopu to migrate. And then we piped the system all the way to the stream. And it was amazing. It was an investment in an improvement that allowed the stream to have as much water as it needed and still get water to field. Much more efficiently. And this is the investment. This is why we got to get the business community here to the table, because this is the investment that's not being made. And yeah, when you then close the plantations and you see the ownership seams, now, because of the breaks of ownership, the sugar plantation did it all. Either they owned it, they leased it, or they had easements. And now when you destroy that system, break it down, it all breaks down, so you can't move water the way you used to. So we got to figure out new ways to move the water and build the infrastructure, modern infrastructure to do it. So how are we going to do that? Who's going to pay for that? And so forth. That's why that business community has to be here, and it has to be making those kinds of investments that really are intelligent for the multiple layers of return that we all expect. And that's why Kamehameha's proof point is really important. Don't tell me it can't be done. We get this gaslighting testimony that comes before the commission. Oh, if you set this in-stream flow standard, you're going to kill the economy. We'll never have affordable housing. That is such a crock. You know, I mean, be smarter. Just figure this stuff out. Put the technology in. If you have to stack capital with some grants, with some government, and some investment capital, do it. You know, figure this stuff out, and we need to be better at it. Wow.
Mahalo for that, each of you. It's so beautiful to me how each of you know your vai. And I heard loud and clear that it's our kuleana, right, as the kaya ulu, as a community, to ensure accountability for our vai, not just for today, but for our water future. And so that really brings me to our last question of what lies ahead, right? Not just for our community, but really for us as a lahui, especially with the onset of the legislative session. All of us on this panel have been water warriors since before it was cool. But what I really saw in the wake of the Maui fires was plantation disaster capitalism, right? That was a new low. I've never experienced bare knuckle politics like that, where the developers partnered with the politicians to take advantage of a desperate situation and make yet another water grab to take what they were unable to accomplish legally, right? With an emergency proclamation, with a swish of a pen. Protections that all the folks who are sitting on the stage with me here today worked so incredibly hard for were gone. And also because of their work, those protections were reinstated, be it the water code, the in-stream flow standards that we've talked about, but that just gets us back to where we were on August 7th, 2023. And now, 3 months later, we need to move forward, especially with the start of the legislative session. And so since we have these me'e with us on the stage tonight, Uncle Kai, what lies ahead, both for your community of Lahaina and for Lahui?
You know, I kind of mentioned earlier about getting control of that 77%, about how we use R1 water. You know, in Lahaina right now, we got to rebuild. We lost everything. And in the rebuild, we cannot go back to doing the same thing because we're going to put us right back in the same situation. And so we got to change the way we think. And that's kind of what we're doing now as a community. You know, after all those years of fighting for the designation and fighting for the in-stream flow standards, what we realized is that I thought was set in stone. These protections was there forever. I never realized that with one snap of his finger, Josh Green and his emergency proclamation could wipe the entire state water code out. And, you know, I'm going to bring up Kaleo. You can bring up Kaleo, eh? If you guys was paying attention, with, you know, Kaleo was that guy that actually gave us that chance to actually be heard. So when our governor did his emergency proclamation, it was he that had Don Cheng remove Kaleo, because Kaleo represented, not represent, he's with the commission, but he gave us the voice. And when you give the people the voice, be aware, get power. And he gave us that voice. And so to extinguish that power, he got rid of Kaleo. And which was a miscalculation. Because I know Lahaina went up in an uproar. People went crazy. The whole state went crazy. Because we knew what it meant. And we was taken back by how we lost this, all this work that we done, we lost it. Not just us, the whole state. And so we got to continue to be vigilant. If you Hawaiian and you care about your place and your water, guess what? You're going to carry a burden your whole life, and you're going to hand that burden over to your keiki because they're going to have to carry them. I don't care what. We cannot live that. I mentioned this in Oahu. You know, I tend to have to, people I meet or kids that I connect with, I tend to have to cut their hearts a little bit. I have to make them feel the pain and give them the hurt so that they know that these things is not guaranteed to you, and you know what it feels like to lose it. So train you to fight, basically. And we get the young coming up with Pele Boy and our young in Lahaina. We not just saying, okay, we eat. The young step into the front, and sometimes we got to recognize as the older guys who say, hey, they're coming up to the front, we're going to step back, but help carry them along. Because when we power, they're the ones going to be there. And yet, again, we offering to them the burden of having to carry their responsibility, which kind of sucks. We're not supposed to be living that way, but that's how we got to live. You know, what the future going to hold, I'm not real sure. I know we're going to be vigilant and we're going to continue to fight for what is right. But no put it past government or anything like that to pull something in the back door that you never see, and all of a sudden you find out you lost something. But you always got to be vigilant. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think Kai said it all. I mean, we just have to be makakau for everything, and be active in every facet of vai, aina, because when we think we have something set forth, you get a curveball thrown at you, and that's exactly what happened with Green and Kaleo. And there's other curveball that's happening this year, which is the worst drought we have ever experienced. Climate change. 3 weeks ago at the Water Commission meeting, we were all testifying stuff like that. I get Aaron nudged me on the side. He said, "Hey, I got to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." And he says, "I just went measure Wailuku River. It's the lowest flow on record. Just happened that day. 5.1 million gallons base flow undiverted, barely reaching Ka'ehu and Nehe, the bay of Wailuku. Why do you think the water is pink in Kealia? How many of you knew that Waikapu? First of all, how many people even knew that Waikapu flowed to Kealia? Number one. Number two is that Waikapu stopped flowing to Kealia in March of this year. That's why Kealia has completely dried up, is because there's the watershed, the stream is just not outputting. So it's about kiloing, right? It's about ensuring that we're always observing, being observant, always reflecting, being active, engaged all the time. There is, again, the minute, the second that we turn our backs and sleep or whatever, they're just waiting on the sidelines to grab and to take away what we fought so hard to get back. So, there's a lot of engaged people here. Paele is, just one of those amazing, next generation. Probably kupuna already. But, it's like...
Hey, I'm 4 years older than her, and she called me uncle every time.
And I called you uncle, too. I'm so sorry.
It's a sign of respect.
But, this gives me hope. This all gives me hope. Things like this. So, mahalo for being here and doing what all of you guys are doing and being engaged.
What is the question again?
The question is, what lies ahead for East Maui and for Lahui, especially given everything that's going down right now?
So I know we had a long fight, over the water. What lies ahead, I hope, is better communication with our community and any entity thinking of coming to East Maui and taking our resource. We're proving that, we're not going back down, from our kupunas when set the stone already. And the water flowing, so right now we just gotta restore our mind, get our kikis healthy and let them live that lifestyle that we got to live, and for anybody that going to East Maui and you guys go and jump in the rivers and cool off and enjoy yourself, just know that it took a lot to get those waters back into those rivers, and you guys can thank our kupunas for that. I know there's a lot of other things that I would like to implement too, because we do have a lot of tourists and stuff like that. Get plenty of things for talk about that river, about the rivers and stuff. But for our community, we just looking to holomua, restore our lois, restore the Hawaiis, restore our people, and get to one place to where we can have abundance again, so we can feed our lahui, like how we used to. But mahalo for this time, for letting me share. And, after this, gotta put this mic down and I gotta go back home, go pull my taro. Because I gotta make poi, so thank you guys for letting me be here.
Mahalo. It really is an honor to sit with you on this panel. I started work at Kamehameha in 1974. It was shortly after the Kalama Valley protests. And I think of a Bishop Estate land manager, that's what we were called back then, Bishop Estate, who said at this day and age, the Hawaiian culture lifestyle ought to be outlawed. This is a guy representing Pauahi, and saying that's his attitude about the management of land. But what it did was launch a cultural revolution and renaissance. And you see across this audience, you see outside, you see on stage last night, the beneficiaries of that renaissance. And our policy and growth as a people is also the beneficiary of that renaissance. We are more enlightened now about things. And you see that you see that in political engagement. And so when you got a guy like Kaleo, who's very well educated, who can come into policy positions and sit and make good decisions, and that's why, and a people who know the injustice, when he's redeployed unjustly, you fight to get him back. And that's what happened. And the level of engagement, we're not going to just sit back and let stuff happen. We're gonna resist. So I see that trajectory. It helps me to see the future. It helps me to kind of run back to the past a little bit and see where we've been. Our cultural renaissance is strong. We're not going to stop practicing culture. We're going to continue to learn. And in that is the foundation of values that'll help us survive in life. So we need to carry it not just from our practice, but into our business and into our government and into our investment. And that's the key, that's the bridge we need to build. I said at Water Commission, I said, our defense is strong. When I get 300 testifiers, and the future looks good because last hearing we had 28 kids from Kulakaiapuni come testify, 11 to 14 years of age. And one guy thank them. And they didn't just say what some teacher told them to say. They said things from their heart that were absolutely on point because they have been involved in a cultural practice that they know. They have the knowledge. It's not just something somebody told them to read. And so we need to continue our cultural practice, grow that, and let that be the foundation, and let those youth will carry us through. But now we need to move that past the practice and into the business and into life. And this opportunity we have in Lahaina, is one such opportunity. And what Kaipa was showing yesterday in his keynote says, what did this look like before? When it operated at an optimal level, how do we restore that? That's step one. And then how do you build around that? So that's step two, and create community, a vibrant community of opportunity around that. And those youth are gonna be the ones who do that. And they need to not only be on this Water Commission, replace me in a few months, and go to a law school and be a farmer and so forth, be at Ko'aheva being the Department of Agriculture for the county, they need to get it to A and B at Kamehameha schools in the land ownership positions and in the banking positions, so forth. So we bring that cultural practice values into those arenas.
Ew. We have a lot to do. We will maka'ala during this legislative session. We need to apply for Neil's seat on the Water Commission, which is specifically designated for someone with significant experience in traditional and customary Native Hawaiian rights and riparian usage. That will be available this summer in June of 2024. So much to do in order to ensure Maui's water future. So mahalo piha for joining us and for taking this time to know your way and to kaka'o Maui. In many ways, protecting our Hawaii is really a fight for the soul of Hawaii. And whether this will remain a place for kanaka and for our lifeways, or is going to simply be a playground for foreigners. So please join me in thanking our amazing panel for their tireless advocacy, for their mana, and also for their aloha. Mahalo.